So Lewis, let's talk a little bit about how Kingston measures endurance for a particular SSD. At Kingston here, we use a calculation called TBW, or total bytes written to the drive. And let's talk a little bit about how we arrive at that value. Sure. And what that means to the user.
Okay. Well, I think with TBW, the biggest thing is that it's very variable, right? It's very dynamic, and I know a lot of our competitors and us included, we will post a TBW number right on there saying that, based on this workload, you should be able to write that. But it is really a kind of your mileage may vary spec, right? It really is a function of total gigabytes on the drive, right? Total program erase cycles. Are we using 3K NAND, 5K NAND, 30K NAND on our E100? And then WAF, which is really the wild card, right? Now, like I said, we talked about this earlier. The WAF of someone just using using their SSD for home use, iTunes, web browsing, email, it could be much different than the WAF from the digital content guy, right? The guy that's in Photoshop all the time, right? The guy that's doing things with Premiere or videos. All of that is going to be a variable within there, and it's going to affect WAF, which is going to affect TBW. So I would say the one thing that I would caution most people is that if you're looking at the marketing spec, right? If you're looking at that data sheet, that's a number that's going to, at some point, the person that created that TBW number had to choose a WAF, right? At a given point. Now, your WAF might be better, and your WAF might be much, much worse. The numbers that we choose are actually pretty conservative, right? For our desktop workloads, we use a WAF of 4, which I think actually is very, very conservative.
Okay, so great. So what you're saying essentially is that your typical client workload is pretty predictable. Yeah, it's compressible. Right. We pretty much know where we fall in regards to our write amplification factor. But again, kind of going back to those purpose-built systems, it's kind of difficult to gauge as to what their WAF's going to be based on compressibility, how random the data is, and so forth. So TBW is again kind of a rough estimate. Yep. Or kind of best guess. Yeah. But individual user application and data is really going to determine, what the TBW life of that drive is.
Definitely, and that's where smart kicks in, right? We talked about that earlier, right? What we give our users is the ability to monitor that, and once you understand what your WAF is, then you can really calculate your own TBW at that, right? And so I know, we've got resources on our website that talk about that. We've shared that with customers, in person. Once you understand WAF, TBW at that point becomes more real. Anything else is just like you said, almost a best guess, right? We're making an assumption, and so most of what I see, and like I said, if you want to call it a marketing spec, that's fine. Most people are probably ultra aggressive when it comes to their TBW numbers, and I'm not sure that that's really real life. I would say in our case, we tend to play things a little more conservatively, and so I would expect most people that are using our drives in the desktop or any kind of just sort of client usage, their TBW is going to exceed what we post easily.
Yeah, great.
Sure.